this is kind of interesting because I got to speak in all 3 tracks out of 4, actually. 3 tracks out of 4. And what most people don't know today about the spiritual hypnosis and my work is actually how I got into the business. Because when people usually find me today on the internet or YouTube or whatever, it's usually either performance, fast stuff, all the clinical stuff with all the stuff I've done there. But basically, the way I got into hypnosis was actually a gift certificate for past life regression. Yeah, there you go. So to kind of like tell you the entire story about that without going, spending a full hour doing that, when I was 8 or 9 years old, I saw this school hypnosis show with a great guy, at least I thought, and I just thought to myself, I want to become someone who can do that, because that was awesome, right? So I rode my bicycle all the way up to the local library, found a book on hypnosis, went through it, no pictures, darn it, and I was looking for the chapter about the magic touch. Because there must be a magic touch, otherwise couldn't, why would people collapse in a chair like that just by saying something? There must be something, some secret to it, right? Couldn't find it, couldn't really understand the words in the book. So I thought to myself, oh, it's all a hoax. It's all bullshit, right? Because it's just pretending, because apparently I didn't get it, so it's not real. So that was the first shattering of a reality in my life, because I thought it was real and then suddenly it wasn't because I didn't get it. So that kind of like built me up throughout my teens, being very not, what would be a good word, how to put it, stubborn and distrusting and all of that,
Yeah.
right? With all my diagnoses and stuff. I was a weird kid though. And I was really, it was becoming to a point where I kind of like became a little bit aggressive towards people who claimed there was other stuff than what you could actually experience right in front of you, right? So I didn't really get it. And then I had, at the age of 19, I had the biggest personal close protection company in my country from that age. That's pretty good job to get that. And I got this gift certificate to a past life regression. So everything I had against hypnosis or alternative treatments or whatever they call it was exactly that. So I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, this is not going to happen. And I finally, out of courtesy and to improve, or not improve, but to kind of like make my girlfriend happy then, I went, and all my misconceptions about a spiritual hypnotist came to life. Like, I call them purple ladies. But in Europe, we have, it goes to a way different dimension than just wearing purple, right? It's crystal rocks all over, incense sticks all over, and speaking, like sitting on a pedestal, something like that. That seemed very gay, it's not. But it's something like that. And I was just walking into her office thinking, oh shit, this is not going to happen. She had bad breath. I could definitely smell what she ate for dinner last night. She was a little bit smelly on top of that. Her dog kept scratching the door. Her kids were playing in the yard right next to the clinic, which was not a clinic, but just a room within her office. And her office was pretty dirty, and everything seemed like just randomly put, random places. So it was kind of a weird experience. So I just lay there on the table, like a massage table, not very comfortable. And she went, in a moment, I will count you back in time. I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And distrusting, disbelieving everything, and really being a very impatient client. Not very friendly either. I was kind of like, everything she said, I was like, yeah, whatever. That kind of attitude, so I had a wrong attitude. And halfway through being really annoyed by her, I had this clear idea suddenly, like, who the hell am I just to lie here and be so obnoxious? Because what is the worst thing that could actually happen? Half an hour sleep? Awesome, because I kind of need it. And I kind of found a way where I felt like I bypassed her very irritating voice that sounded like some, wood tool, saw, whatever, going on the whole time. And I didn't even give her any kind of information. Just kind of like followed on a distance what she was trying to get out of the session with me and how she tried to guide me. And suddenly, in that experience of who the hell am I, boom, it happened. Immediately, I found myself in a situation, Second World War, Berlin, feeling like a young kid, and the German soldiers just came and pulled us out of mom and dad's grocery store. And everything was so vivid, live, and I felt it, I saw it, I could hear everything, and I'm like, oh, what the hell is just happening, right now, what is it? And so deep into it because my mind went, it's just imagination. But another dimension of my mind went, well, how can it be that I know this? Something's wrong, right? So remember, since the age of 9, I was against everything that was anything like this. And I got this amazing experience of a lot of information, really detailed information. My conscious mind went, oh, you probably learned this in school, you probably saw a video or movie or read a book, whatever. But on the other side, I kept noticing all those details, kind of like putting it into my notes in the back of my mind, thinking, there's something about this that I cannot explain. And what really got me was the connection of emotions to that whole experience, even though I might have been the most resistant client. And still today, she might have been the worst therapist ever. But I thank her because that's why I'm sitting here right now, okay? So she did a really good job, at least on a human level, facing me as a client. So what happened was, apparently my parents were Jewish. We were allowed to have, there was a part of Berlin that was actually allowed for the Jewish people still to stay around and stick around and have those shops or whatever until a certain extent. And then suddenly all got shut down. And my experience was that exact day, everything got shut down. So my dad was sitting on the back of a truck with the rest of my family. Got a sister, got a mom, we got some neighbors there. And soldiers were pissed off because something was about to happen. We were about to get to whatever concentration camp or whatever, probably. And my dad kept like, run. I'm like, no, I'm not going to run. Because soldiers were standing there with guns and stuff. And he kept saying, run. Because he knew. Kids usually didn't go all the way. Because it was just, it was just weight. So get rid of the weight and have those who can actually do the work in the camps, have them being transported. All the rest, kill them on the side of the road. So eventually, I found the courage, stood up, and one brief moment where soldiers were looking in a different direction because there was something happening over there, I just ran the other direction. This was my neighborhood, right? So I knew exactly where to hide and all of that. And as I was running, I was so deep into that experience, and at the same time, my conscious mind went like, it's all made up in your mind. So that conflict was there the whole time. But in spite of that, I kept staying within the connection of that experience because it felt so real. I knew I survived. Within a couple of months, people stopped helping me because nobody could actually have me in their apartments or whatever, because if they found me, they would get charged and killed right there on the spot, right? That's how it was. So from hiding behind closets and stuff into alleyways to the backyards of these buildings, it became basements and whatever I could find, right? One morning I woke up in a basement on the same street I was living in, and I knew this is the last moment in my life. And my conscious mind went like, oh, freaking out. But my emotion was like, it's all good. I'm totally calm. It's perfectly okay. I'm kind of looking forward to it. That is a weird idea, isn't it? Looking forward, this is the last moment. Yay! Who goes yay on that, right? So these two young soldiers showed up in the basement, and I knew they found me, so that's basically what it was. And I was standing in front knowing that if I did something, he would pull the trigger. There was one in front of me holding a gun, and there was another one almost just behind me, making sure I didn't run for it. So I kind of just knew that I was the one who was supposed to do whatever was necessary to get him to pull the trigger. So just made the move, and he pulled it. Barely, not many years much older than me, so he shot. I felt it. It wasn't pain. It was release. And this whole thing of letting go within your body and just collapsing, but at the same time noticing blood in your face. What do you think my first concern was about? It wasn't about me. It was about the guy behind me. Because he got my whole face splattered all over his face. So I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? On a soul level, how messed up is that, right? But that was my experience. Because that was a different kind of love or connection or passion or whatever it is. So that really freaked me out on a lot of levels. So all those details, I noted it down afterwards, put it in whatever book I had back then, put it in a drawer, and I didn't open that for 6 months because I was kind of like, that was all fantasy. I don't know, but I knew the emotion behind it, so I was freaked out because that was painful in all sorts of ways. So after like 6 months, I kind of took a look at that again, and apparently I forgot about it. I drew like a drawing of the street I was living in from back then. Brick road, old lamps by the sidewalk, 4-story buildings, exactly how my parents' grocery store looked like. I knew there was like an airfield right next to it. We used to go to the harbor and pick up groceries and stuff for the shop. And in the end of the road, going, I think it was west actually, there was this small square with a statue on it, a man on a horse, very European, but it had some significant details about it that I actually put down into my notes. And all the time I was thinking, where did you actually see this? Where do you know this from? So I keep searching within my mind, but I never found it. And so I did the thing you probably shouldn't do. Packed the car, went to Berlin, knowing I'm going to debunk all of this BS right now. Right now. I still had it in me, right? So I packed the car, brought the family with me, went down there, and for some weird reason, took a wrong turn on the freeway and got into another part of town we weren't supposed to be in. Driving around, and everything was like under construction, so for some weird reason, suddenly we ended up on a small side street of the main street, and I'm like, oh shit, this is the street. And I knew what it was called. It was called Weissstraße, and I speak German too. And the peculiar thing about that, I thought I knew how it was spelled. And I kept looking for that on the old internet. That was pretty difficult. And there was no street in Berlin called that, but I misspelled it. So I just looked up, and here was a street sign that said Weiche Straße. Not Weissstraße, but Weiche. There was another E in it. I'm like, shit, this is it. And looking down the street, 4-story buildings, brick road still. Corner was the arched entrance to a shop that was today a kiosk that was shut down, exactly as in my notes. And just talking about it right now, it still happens. So I'm like, oh, it's real. But in spite of that, I thought,
where's the horse?
Yeah, you're just making it up. So you get stuff to fit your description of whatever experience you think you have. So driving down the street, and suddenly I knew that was the basement. I saw the characteristics, it matched my notes, and my wife back then in the car said, it's in your notes, this is it, you've never been here before, I know that. I'm like, no, it just fits because that looks like any other basement in Germany. Because I was trying to explain my way out of it, because, you know, what kind of emotions might have been hidden underneath the surface, right? And so I'm like, before we even got to the hotel, I'm like, okay, let's go outside and see what happens. Walk down the street, freaking statue. It was not as I expected it, but there was the horse, there was the guy on it, and it was very significant different, as I put in my notes, compared to other statues in Europe. That's usually a man on a horse doing like that with a sword, like, I'm gonna get you, right? And so it was exactly as in my notes, but still my brain went, no, coincidence, right? And from my school geography, I knew Berlin, in the middle of Germany, it's the mainland of Europe. There's no harbor. How could there be? Because the shore is like 1,000 kilometers away, like 600 miles, right? So drove around a little bit, and there we came to the old docks by the river in Berlin with the old cranes and stuff. I'm like, it's it. This is it. And I got scared. So my last hope now was the airfield. Because that was the last piece of the puzzle. So I needed to disprove, because if that was wrong, everything else was wrong, right? Remember, I was pretty stubborn and I didn't believe in it. So went back to the old neighborhood, took a walk, went outside, and there was this old, not old, it's kind of like a football field, like an arena. And that was where it was supposed to be, and it looked nothing like an old airfield or park or anything like that. But on the freaking sidewall was a plate saying, in memory of the old airfield, World War II. I'm like, I'm going back home now, because I can't cope with this, right? So I basically, we didn't go to the hotel, I just went back home, because I was freaked out on all sorts of levels at the same time, because my whole, remember, I wanted to become a hypnotist. That got shattered because the illusion of the reality was broken. Now it became real again. So I knew my calling from way back was probably right. So did I just spend 12 years with nonsense, being stubborn and stupid? Good, because you're supposed to be that at that age. But anyway, so I went back home, and I was like, I need to do something about that, because I do feel deep within there's something for me in this. If I can have this experience, being so stubborn and resistant, with a therapist so little skilled within her craft of doing this, and I still believe that, what would happen if I was actually well educated, and I actually looked at the research and the science, and actually made it become something that would be a resource to people? What would happen? That was my quest. That's what I needed to do. So what did I do? Went to the library again, got all the books, and who did I found? Richard Sutton, right?
Oh, yes.
Deeper, deeper, down, down, down. That's Richard. So I traveled to the US, hooked up with Richard. We became close friends way back, and I've studied with him for many, many years, and he was like my mentor then. And all my disbelief in all sorts of still regions within spiritual hypnosis, he kept saying, well, I appreciate your disbelief, but would you be ready to have an experience that might change your view on that? I'm like, yeah, because I trusted him. I still do. So every time I had something that went against my sense or my modern human thinking, he took me through an experience, again, allowing me to be resistant, but really getting the information. So he really taught me everything that is the base and foundation of what I do today. And then at some certain point, we kind of like separated, because I wanted to do things faster, and he was still stuck with his old methods. Good, because he created a lot of great stuff. And he went to a time period where his old ex-wife, Tara, and him had a huge fight, and that's pretty public, so I probably won't, mind me mentioning it. So I had to do my own stuff, and then suddenly somebody said, well, that session we had the other day where you took me to the life between life, have you ever read a book about Michael Newton? I'm like, who the hell is Michael Newton? And she's like, oh, you have to read this book, Soul Journeys, whatever it was. And I'm like, oh, it's convenient. That guy is going to be in the UK in 4 months from now. I'll book it. So I was in Michael Newton's last class where he actually taught himself about the life between life, and I was already doing it. And what most people think is, oh, that is a Michael Newton invention, all the life between life. No, it's not. 2 psychiatrists from back in the 20s and 30s actually did it already then. There's books in that. I can't remember the name of it. So he just took that research and he used it within the military, and he played around with it. And what got him hooked was he had 2 clients, one claiming to be a servant of Marilyn Monroe, and another one claiming to be a friend of that servant or assistant of Marilyn Monroe. So he kind of like, oh, this is interesting. Let's do some research on that. Let's ask both of them same kind of questions. If they have the same answer, That's proof. So he went all scientific on it. And that is basically what the Newton Institute is doing today. That's all about the research. So thank God for that, because that is really structuring this whole world beyond our world, and that's freaking awesome. But here's the thing. What really got me going, and I'm leading into what is SoulKey really. That is, at some point during that seminar, the Newton method is all about taking people back to the most recent past life, because the more details you have about the most recent past life, it would be easier right now to access whatever world there might be in between, or the soul, or the spirit, or whatever we call it, right? And I'm like, I don't get that, because something is wrong in this equation. Because considering, if we speak about spirit, other souls, where we are as a soul right now, and whoever helps us, they know everything about us. We know everything about who we are on a soul level. So everything is public. And if they know all about us, why do we have to go back to the most recent past life and pretend we came from that, pretending they're stupid apparently, to get access? That is already taking all the seriosity out of that relationship, pretending to be something you're not. So how could you validate good information in a session if the entrance is all about, bullshit and nonsense? So I gave that as a question in class, and I saw Stephen Poplin and a few other assistants look at me like, don't. Like, and what don't you get? It's not in the manual. I'm like, well, that's why I asked the question. And Dr. Newton, he just looked at me with a smile on his face saying, yes. Like, so that's not an answer. So we'll have a chat about that afterwards. So I was like really being pissed off, because why wouldn't he want to answer it? So we had a conversation afterwards. He said, you're onto something. And what you're doing right now is the right thing to do. And this might be the place where you path from what I do and what you need to go and do, because I'm pretty good with what we got already. And I don't have the energy and the time to go into that discussion, because you're right. You're absolutely right. That works, but you're right. I'm like, thank you. And I left the seminar, because that's the confirmation I needed. So SoulKey, kind of like, it already existed before that, but that's really where I put it into a structure, knowing that we can get the same access that Richard Southern could do in 3 to 5 sessions. We can get the same access in 1 session. We can get full access to everything you need to know in life between life, whatever there is in different dimensions, again, in that first session. Why? Because if you truly accept who you are, you get full access. Why wouldn't you? Right? So the question is, what kind of conscious access do you think you might need compared to what real access do you actually need? All right? So what I do, I separate conscious from the experience, totally. Because conscious is everything that's in the books. And it has nothing to do with those freaking books whatsoever. It's all about the experience. And here's a small comment. It's a sidetrack, but here's a small comment. If you look at soul colors in Michael Newton's book, there's a pretty fine structure to that. And a lot of people who reads that is kind of like, oh, I really hope I'm a like deep blue, purple kind of person, because I do feel that, because I got a gift from birth. I'm spiritual. I'm connected. I'm intuition. My intuition is vibrant or whatever. I'm like, most likely, you're gonna be a pink one. Because if you think it's all about being that, as being more advanced than others, you clearly don't get the picture. So that means you have a high potential for development. That's when I put it in a nice way, right? If you have a high potential for future development, that means you probably haven't seen all of it yet, right? You've got a lot to learn. And those people usually don't get the confirmation of how advanced, because it's not about how advanced you are. You can get to full knowledge and insight as a soul throughout 10 different lives. It doesn't have to be a metaphysical life like this. It could be any kind of life. Or you can choose to have 1,000. It doesn't really matter. The path is interesting. The emotions connected to it is interesting. I'll get back to that a little bit. So it has never anything to do with the structure a human mind possibly can think of, because that is human-made. That's why we have a religion. and all sorts of stuff. I'm not stepping on anyone's toes because it's done a lot of good, but it's definitely done a lot of bad also for those who can't control it. So when I see a client who wants a SoulKey session and they have all sorts of hopes and wishes, I go, all right, so before we talk about that, let's see what would be funny as a small thing before we do the real thing. What I'm actually doing, I'm doing the real thing, but I'm taking away the set of expectation because now I truly know whatever happens is the real deal. And this is what happens. After the session, they go, oh, that was awesome. I got way more than I expected. And we didn't even go to this place or that place because I thought in my mind all the answers was there, but this is way better. I'm like, I know. Because we didn't do it your way, we did it my way, right? And my way is not about the structure I invented. No, my way is respecting the soul and the mind behind it so they get the exact information they need. All right? So to me, spiritual hypnosis is still just hypnosis. To me, has nothing to do with political ideas or foundations or religion or anything like that. I love religion, at least all the good sides of it, all the philosophy and all of that. So I'm not picking that fight, but this goes way beyond that. There's a reason why we have those ideas, because it came from somewhere. What if it came from your soul? How can it be that no matter what kind of civilization we're talking about, they all had the pretty same idea about the afterlife or in-between life? How can that be? Where did we pick up on that? Even civilizations that never had any kind of interaction with each other might even been separated with hundreds of years, maybe even thousands. How can that be? So what I did in the beginning of my career, I kind of like went all scientific about it too, because I wanted to prove that past lives are real. So I got everything from professors to this or that, military people who didn't believe in it, and we got some good, solid confirmation that the information they got from the session, well, some of it wasn't even proved at the time of the session, but years later. Here's the thing. We have something called Illustrated Science, like a magazine in Europe. It's being published in different countries. And I had this military guy who had a past life 150,000 years ago as being part of a group of people in Asia that for some reason 500 of them suddenly just took off and started walking towards what we know today as Russia through Siberia. And there's been some kind of ideas that maybe that happened, but there was no proof whatsoever, so all scientists kind of like shut it down, like, no, it never happened, there's no proof, we can't see it, there's no remains, there's no nothing, it wouldn't make sense. But he had that experience. And this was way beyond language, because they had grunts, sounds and stuff, so it wasn't really a language. But it was really interesting because as being part of it, there wasn't much answers in it. So if I asked a question, I didn't really get much, so I had to keep addressing his soul mind to explain to me what happened, because if I asked the person as being there, it was more just like sounds, or grunts, or gestures, right? So what a conversation. So we got it all figured out. We knew exactly the time period. We knew exactly the location. We mapped it out on a map that he looked on afterwards, still being in trance. That's the spot and stuff like that. And we took pictures of it. We went all scientific. 2 years later, an article was published about the work some scientists did 12 months prior to the article. That means 12 months after we did the session. Everything from the session, from the recording, was proved in that article. I'm like, wow. So, and that kind of proof is everywhere. When we look, do you guys, are you familiar with Dr. Ian Stevenson?
Sure.
Oh yeah, awesome dude, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Was.
Yeah, it was, yeah. He did a tremendous job of researching all of this, especially with kids from India. There's a lot of books on this, and the proof and the scientific approach to it is so amazing, respecting the spirit or the soul in it, but really looking at it from a very conscious point of view, and still proving that there's so many things here you cannot explain a way out of, because it's real. So there's more proof that it's existing than there's proof against it. Basically, all proof against it is just philosophies and ideas. but all proof that confirms it is something that's being put on a paper of statements, experiences, details, information that is being compared. So in that way, there's something there. It's true. So what I did was I figured out a way of how would I get people into the perfect trance of being able to open them up on a spiritual level. Because it's not just an arm pull. It's not a showy induction. It's not a relaxed, progressive relaxation. It's not an Elman. It's nothing like that. No, it's actually a very short deepener and then an opening of something way higher on a frequency than what we are used to. So we're not talking about delta or theta. We're talking about ultra something else. Okay? So, and when we get that access, I figured out throughout a lot of maybe 1,000, 1,500 clients that all of them had some kind of like a headquarters in between all the dimensions. I call that the fireplace room because my place looks like a fireplace room. So I call it because that's my home address. When I'm not here being present, well, I'm even if I'm here being present right now, I'm still at that place because that is the Swiss tool of access to different dimensions in my perspective. You can do everything there and you can travel to everywhere from there because it has so many options and stations and tools within it. And 9 out of 10 clients, even without explaining it to them, they went to that place. And then some people go, well, they pick it up in your aura, they pick it up in your energy and stuff like that. Whatsoever, I don't give a damn because why would they say it to me if it wasn't their experience? What if their experience was something that is a general thing for most people when we go all spirit or soul, right? I respect that. It might look different. It might not look like a fireplace room. It might be a white dome in the middle of the universe. Who knows? It might be a meadow. It might be an old Roman setting with pillars and stuff. That is just manifestation of an image. So we as a human feel comfortable going, oh, now I like it, instead of just energy, right? Make sense? So it's just an image to make us feel comfortable. That's the same reason when people start meditating, instead of seeing like whatever spirit guide they have or counselor or whatever, usually it's grandma or somebody else they know who shows up the first time. Why? To make them feel comfortable on a personal level. Like, I can hold your hand. Come on, it's all right. Okay, and then boom, spirit guide, right after. Instead of, I actually had once on a night of meditation. His first meeting with his spirit guide was this big dude from Africa, like from way back, almost no clothes on, only happy, playing music. And he's like, my spirit guide is like this tall, playing music and being all African. I'm like, I expected like a small Chinese guy just sitting like that. I'm like, well, it's never what you expect, is it? But that guy turned out to be the most humorous one, not the client, but his spirit guide that actually connected with everyone in the entire group. So in that case, it had a purpose. So there's always a way into it. So if we feel more comfortable in a fireplace room, like an old mansion kind of thing, or if it's a dome, if it's a spaceship, who gives a crap anyway? It's just a place with access to different other places, right? That's basically what it is. So I always take my clients to this place because when they access that, nothing can hurt them. That's the next step, because what I experienced throughout many mentors and gurus in this world, all of them have like a 15 to 20% of being afraid of some stuff happening throughout a session. Like, what if a bad entity shows up? What if there's negative energy? What if something wrong happens? What if you have an abreaction? Trust me, it's only there because you think it. That's basically it. Because if you're in your true soul power, nothing can hurt you. As a human being, well, you're pretty messed up. But being totally connected to your soul, nothing can hit you. Nothing can hurt you. Nothing can kick you in the butt or pinch you or whatever. Cannot happen. So when you enter the fireplace room, there's a whole army working on your behalf, making sure that everybody who enters, they have a pass. They have a purpose of being there. So in the rare occasions where somebody shows up that the client doesn't know, even on a spiritual level, they still have a purpose because they're delivering a message from somebody else who couldn't find the energy to be there. And it all adds up to positive resources anyway. So there's no being afraid in the fireplace room. And here's what gets even better. This is a long discussion I had with Satvin, because he said, well, usually if the client is not ready for the information, and the only thing they see is black or nothing or shut door, whatever, he actually accepted it as they're not being ready right now, so they need to go back home and think about it and wait for the right moment. I'm like, why did they get this far? And what is not right, the conscious wishes or what's really about to happen? So this is my way around it. Every time I get someone who says, well, the door is shut, I go, awesome, perfect. Yeah, well, whatever, right? And if you say, well, there's no door, awesome, perfect. Because either way they're going to put it, the door is not the entrance. It's all there. If they say it's shut, I say, of course it is, because that's keeping everybody else out. You can just enter it. You can just think your way through it, and it's there. Yeah, it might even be open, as we're talking about right now. They go, oh yeah, I can walk inside right now. They're like, so it's not a problem. Everything that shows up, to me, is a gift, because I can just do something opposite or confirm it as, well, that's your safety measurement. Perfect, you got it. That means we can actually continue. If they go, it's all empty, I would say something like, awesome, perfect. You get a hang of this, right? Okay, why? Because if it's empty, that means, do you know how much stuff we can put in there now of new ideas and new thinking? That's really awesome. Who cleaned it up for you? They go, I don't know. Good. So a lot of people help you without you knowing. That means you're safe and secure. They go, oh. So the conscious way of thinking, if I say empty, that's my way out. That's my ticket out of this. And I go, that's awesome. How did you know I wanted that way? They go, well, I don't know. But okay, let's continue, right? So all the misunderstandings, all the trouble and everything like that is the last breath of a conscious mind trying to protect the client from deep emotion or misunderstandings, in my perspective. And that is not allowed, and it will not happen in any of my sessions. There's a rare occasional client, 1 out of 100, who actually doesn't want the session, and I'll figure that out in pre-talk, so they will never go this far anyway.
What if they just go to color?
Awesome.
I mean, how do you do that?
How do you know it's a color?
Well, if they're saying that all they are is in color, how do you get
how to experience the color? If they go, well, it's gray, on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is light gray and 10 is like really dark, what is it? Or they go, it's a 7, now it has a value. So if you could touch it, what kind of consistency is it? Can you stand within it? Will it float on it? Will you go straight through it? And now it has a physical element to it. And I just continue asking those questions, and then suddenly they go, I'm in the middle of a forest now. I'd say, that's right. Of course you are. That's the way in. So I will not accept an answer as being something worthless. Make sense? So a color is pretty awesome, because that's way better than nothing. Right? So, and how does it feel right now knowing that that's your color? Did you know that was your color? They go, no, I kind of hate orange, but I see orange. How do you know you hate it? Because what kind of sensation or feeling do you have inside of your body right now thinking about orange? Because I see you smiling, so you probably couldn't hate it. So what's happening right now? They go, oh, that's kind of peculiar. Yeah, isn't it? You didn't expect that, did you? So I'm leading everything. There's no issues. So, and it comes from many years of experience of how to communicate this way, but I will always get them to enter whatever experience they were expecting and way beyond that, all right? So, I'm not giving up, because my job is not to provide an experience to my client, it's to make sure they will get the full benefit of the experience. So whenever they face something that might shut them down or stop them, my job is to eliminate that. That's basically it. I'm just a guide. I'm the tour guide of their imagination, right? I expect the same thing. If I show up in the middle of Barcelona and I don't know the neighborhood, and I paid somebody to actually show me around, I expect them to make sure that I will not walk into any tourist traps or anything like that, and show me the real stuff. So, because can I ever argue with them, because if the street is too messy or too dirty, is it their problem? No, they're just a guide. Well, I want the cathedral to be over there because it's a shorter distance. They can't change it. I just need to accept all of that. But they can guide me the easiest way to the biggest, celebrity locations or whatever. And that's the same thing that's my job in a session with a client wanting to connect. And here's another thing that most people forget about. If you're so privileged that you see clients that will access soul and spirit in your presence, that means you're already pre-approved. It means that. Why would they show up if you weren't? So you're already pre-approved. So the thing about, well, hey, we can't get inside because you're with me and you're the guide, so hey, we can't do it, will never happen. But it will always be something different from what they expect on a conscious level. And let's take that to another step. Because if you read the books of Michael Newton, most people just want to go to the council. Hey, let's go to the council. All the answers is there. That's bullshit. But anyway, you can get it wherever. But it's a freaking nice experience in spite of everything. But entering the life between life, there's always, I kind of like use the gatekeeper as somebody who always approaches us when we actually leave a life and get back home or whatever we call it, to make sure, are you all there as a soul? Can I connect with you? Do you know your way around? Or do I need to follow you because you still have half of your personality as being Thomas or whoever, so you might mess up things. So they're making sure that you're okay when you enter. That's basically their job. They've known you from the very beginning. That's the only job in the world. You and many others. But anyway. Sometimes I've met a client who says, my gatekeeper is not allowing access right now. And most people go like, oh, we can't insult spirit because we need to be very respectful and almost do this. That's how religion was made, and how well did that go, huh? So again, that's the religion thing again. This is because I start with a German story, because that was my issue way back. That was religion. I was so pissed off at religion. Today, it doesn't mean anything to me, but anyway. So I experienced that a couple of times, so I went like, okay, again, we got this far. I know I'm pre-approved, and I know it's all about the client experiences, so I might miss something here. So it was not a matter of, I want access now, and just being all childish about it. It's kind of like, so I started asking questions like, is there anything we need to know from our client to have an even better outcome when we do enter in a moment? So I used hypnotic language even on a soul, right, or spirit. And they will actually give the answer just like that. Well, you need to go back and do that, and you will get full access. Here we go. That's why the SoulKey came into the equation of naming this. And here comes something even better. I'm what they call a butcher's dog. When he looks away, he will grab a bone, right? So I'm not sure if there's any lingo for that in American. What?
We get it.
Yeah, you get it, right? So here's the thing. One day I had a client saying, well, we can't get access because my gatekeeper says, you cannot access. And I'm like, I knew there was something on the other side. I knew we really did a good job of checking out everything else. So I knew this was supposed to be opened all right now. What if it was a test? What if the client needs to step into character and demand access because that's what they lacked until now? So here's what I did, and usually when I tell that to people who usually do this work, they go, oh no, you didn't. What I did actually was, I just said, well, I know your gatekeeper is listening right now because we all connected anyway. And right now, as we're speaking, my gatekeeper and my guide will connect with your gatekeeper and make sure that I will get access, because do he really know who I am? And I just waited like, please work. And 5 seconds felt like an hour, and gatekeeper said, doors open, that's what we needed. I'm like, oh shit. So I've done that successfully like 20, 30 times ever since, and that's what they need, because you will not even be shown the door, or the client will not even be led to that dimension if there wasn't access. Because I've had clients who really wanted that experience, but when they got to the fireplace room, they were led somewhere else, and when I'm asking them, so do you want to go to the life between life and see the council? No, it doesn't matter. Not now, because we're all connected, so it's all good. So that gives me confirmation that if they do get half access to somewhere, It means either I need to pull away a couple of rocks, see what's underneath, ask the right questions, or push them through, because that's my job and that's their job. So there's no limits. So SoulKey, basically, key to the soul. Get full access, one session, get the insights you need as who you are right now, whatever you need to do or become or change, so you know who you really are. One thing is knowing about the life you're in. Past lives makes up for that. And I'm not doing like sightseeing, like let's see how many past lives we can do in an hour. That would be awesome. Let's do 10. Haha, yeah. What's the benefit of that? I usually do one. And one is all about establishing it. Find a couple of situations that has a meaningful emotional situation in it that makes sense in your current life and gives you answers, and then finish it off with actually a death scene. And you might ask, why? Well, it's quite crucial because there's a reason why we're still connected to it. Because as a soul, you're pretty bold once in a while because you can handle all of it at the same time. And it's not because the soul forgets stuff, but sometimes it leaves a little frequency so you can pick it up in a later life, because that's a tool, that's a bonus. It's kind of like playing Mario Kart, and then suddenly something is glimpsing in the corner, and when you push it, you get 10 points, right? This is the same thing. We leave golden nuggets in our lives, so when we suddenly feel like there's no way out of this, if you look deep into yourself, there's a way. So this is the same thing. So my experience is that if you do that and you do the death scene, you will never disconnect with that past life entirely, but everything that is need to be released, releases. But at the same time, everything that needs to be integrated happens in that moment where you cut that silver cord between you and the soul. It happens just like that. Okay? So it's a really important thing. And a lot of people think like, oh, that must be like the worst experience ever, to go through death. No, it's beautiful. I've had clients who's been chased through an old village with, haymakers or whatever, like, oh, we're gonna kill you, witch. And when it happened, it was kind of like, oh, finally. I was tired of running anyway, right? Something like that, or a spear through your throat. Okay. And one of the most powerful ones was a guy, very successful banker, made a lot of millions, and now he stepped out of that business, bought a campsite with his family, and he lost all track of emotions and wantings in life. He had no vision whatsoever. It was all about work, 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 work. If you asked him, do you want chicken or beef? He was like, I don't know. That was basically, he didn't know. No emotions, no feelings. So he had a session, and his past life was him being delivered into a monastery in France a couple of hundred years ago as an infant. And they took care of him. They raised him in good faith and all of that. And his only wish for his entire life was, if I can get one of my texts approved by the Pope, so it's something that you preach or give as a lecture in the churches, wow, that would be awesome. So his entire life, he just sat up there in the monastery in the mountains and the Alps, looking down into the valley with flowers and sun in it. And he became sick and really bad health. And finally, just before he took his last breath, he got one text approved by church and Pope. And we actually found it afterwards with the name and everything. It's pretty awesome. And here's the thing, his only wish now was, I want to go into the valley and have my last breath. And that's beautiful, let's do it. Because that means something. So he got all his pals to carry him down, they wrapped him up in a blanket, and you should suppose this is going to be beautiful now. But he was complaining like a bitch all the way down, being connected to that past life. Like, oh, that blanket smells, like ass. He was really into details, right? Came down, the sun wasn't hot, it was cold, it was chilly, he had stomach aches and all of that. And he was complaining the whole way through and started doubting his own experience. And I saw him lying there, and he went like cramps in his stomach because he was so connected. It doesn't scare me though, because it's just an echo of time anyway, so it's not real. But if he accepts it, it's because he needs something from that experience, and that's what's the case right now. So I just, instead of just dragging it I just said, well, in a moment, when I count from 3 to 1, before or when I do the count of 1, you will have taken your last breath and just leave that old body of yours and just look down and acknowledge everything you've done. Even failure is now a lesson and a learning. And I just started counting, and he went like shaking, and then he started crying. And usually when this is awkward, but when my client starts to cry, I go, yes! You wouldn't normally do that, would you? Like, yeah, my client cries, so awesome. No, but he started crying like, yes, he's connected now. And his first words were, this is it. Now it's beautiful. Because it's not about all that, it's all about me noticing my body, allowing my emotions to be connected with my brain and my ideas. Wow. So after that session, he sold everything. Traveled around the world with his entire family for a year. He had the money for it. And a year later, he just called me up like, hey, it's me. I'm like, hey, thank you. I'm like, okay. That was it. That was awesome. That thank you means so much more than anything else, really.
Yes.
So that was beautiful. So never expect something like that to be awkward or weird because it means something to the client. The only problem would probably be you with the limit you have into believing their experience are real right now and not connecting with it. So I'm not afraid of app reactions. I'm afraid of me having an app reaction with my client. I'm not afraid of my client having one, because if there is one, it's because I didn't do my job well. And in my perspective, when they do enter, again, the fireplace room, everything that happens beyond that door is only safe. So there's no way in my mind that can happen. I had one client, though, who said, in the fireplace room, I usually set up a couple of chairs so anyone can come and say hi or visit or whatever. Could be grandma, old dog or whatever. I even had a client who had 2 horses, 3 cats, and a dog sitting there like, woof. And she spent a full 90 minutes chatting with them. That was her SoulKey session. I'm like, okay. But it meant something to her, but to me it was kind of like, that was a weird session, right? But it's not about me. But anyway, what happened was, she opened her eyes and there was this black shadow and she got frightened. And again, I'm thinking, this is just a test. If I get frightened, it will become pretty frightening, right? So I just went, oh, of course it's a black shadow, because in a moment it will reveal itself when you're ready for it. So it might be when you take your next deep breath, or when you're done taking your last, not the last, but the next deep breath. So that means when you take the next breath, right? So she did that and said, oh, it's my uncle. And apparently uncle wasn't very nice in her current life, but he came to explain himself as a soul, showing her and telling her why he did this stuff, why he was limited as a human being, and what the purpose was of it, and she fell in love with it almost. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, can people show up as who they were? Yeah, but with soul knowledge. And that changes the entire game. Totally, yeah.
Was this a live or a past uncle?
It was past. I do have a limit. If I have a client saying, well, I want to connect with my let's say, mom in this life, because I need a word with a soul, I would say, Mom, I'm not doing that. If it happens, okay, but it will not be the purpose of the session. Because that is interfering with other people without their permission. I will never allow that. But here's a twist to it, because that's a good, I was actually thinking about that just a moment ago. I had a client, went through a past life, she went to life between life, and then suddenly her mom showed up in the seats or in the chairs in front of the fireplace. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So my question was, is your mom still alive? She said, yeah. But our relationship, weird. And the whole reason for the past life, her current mom was her daughter in a past life. So they had so many problems and conflicts in this life because the old roles in life were still happening. Not in person, but in layers of whatever energy it is, or whatever part of the soul it is. So they had so many issues with each other because mom, or daughter now, didn't allow mom to say anything because in her eyes, she was still the daughter. So that was messed up. So what the mom actually offered, and I'm using that now as a tool because of my client, the mom offered, let's go into the healing portal and get it all sorted out on a soul level. I'm like, okay, let's do that. So 2 minutes, they just stood there holding each other in this portal of light, and she was like hovering in the chair, and she called me up the day after saying, I'm going to tell you something, because I told her, do not say anything to your mom, because that might mess it up. She might feel violated. So that is something for you and your soul. Whatever happens beyond that, awesome. Next day when she woke up, they were living in the same house. That's awkward still, especially in Europe. Well, that part of Europe, not in Italy or Greece. But mom was whistling in the kitchen like, hey, hon, so what are you going to do today? Do you want to spend time together? I want to hang out. It's been a while, hasn't it? And she's like, what did you do to my mom? Right? And mom just broke the ice saying, I had this weird dream this night, but I felt like something was put into place. I want to know you better. And I was like, yeah, gives me the chills still. So that was freaking awesome. So that is a tool now in the SoulKey world of what I do, that if it's necessary and you have these conflicts of people who are still present in your life, you can go and untangle that easy. It's 2 freaking minutes. No hypnotherapy session can do that in an hour. Even the stuff I do. But connected to this, if it's a purpose for the client, absolutely, right? So this is my baby. I'm not sure if you noticed that, but I'm pretty passionate about it, even though I do all the other stuff, right?
I picked up on subtle clues.
Yeah, just teeny tiny ones, right? What gave it away? My smile? I don't know. But it's so efficient, but it's not for everyone. It's not something I would never go and sell to a client like, do you have any, what would you say would be a good thing for me? Well, if they didn't pay attention to it on my website, I would never say, well, maybe a SoulKey would be good for you. Because people find SoulKey doesn't find, oh, yeah, well, SoulKey find people, and they'll eventually think they found it. But that's how it works, really.
It's like an invitation.
Yeah, it's kind of it. And when you're connected, you're connected. So from all the work I've done, that is the most successful one. I had trainings in Germany with hundreds of people on it, like 100, every single time. I got trainers in 12, 14 different countries right now. We just opened up in India, and that's going to take off like crazy.
Do you have a book on this?
No, because that is my limitation. I got 15 books in my mind right now. I'm reading, I'm writing all of them, and every time I come to like a closure, I got a new idea within it, so I have to rewrite everything. So that is how I write books. I got some good books in there. They're not published though, but eventually there will be when I have time for it. So maybe sometime. But I have my manual, I have all my videos. Same kind of thing to me anyway. But I know the book thing is important. I will get it done. Thank you for kicking my butt right now. But that's the way I work, because I do know that every time I have an idea of something, I want to make it better and better and better and better, because there must be a shortcut. There must be an easier way, because that is my whole approach to everything that I do with hypnosis. If you've seen my show stuff, you know why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. If you saw the induction stuff the other day, it's all about the science. If you see the clinical stuff, it's all about the nervous system, the neural networks, and the brain functioning the right way. It's all about that. This is the same thing, but this is the thing we cannot only connect with nervous system or neural networks or all the science of the brain. It's on a different level too. So the only thing I can do to really build that up would be through experience and experience and experience. I had 8,000 clients doing SoulKey right now.
How
And that's
can we
pretty
learn
okay.
this?
Sorry?
How can we learn this?
On a training, I actually just had one, but that doesn't help you anyway, does it? I just did a training in Vegas like a month ago. I'll do another one next spring, most likely, where you can become a facilitator of SoulKey. It's fun.
Do you do these sessions online, or is it always in person?
Depends on the day. I know it's a weird answer.
Yeah.
In a conscious mindset, I would actually say, well, most likely in a SoulKey session, I would do that one-on-one live. Because I need to pay attention, I need to make sure that all is good. And that is when it's somebody I don't know. If it's a past client who did something else and I kind of like know how they function, and I know they trust me, I would do an online thing anytime, because most of my regular clients are just online, because I have some requirements. I need to see the entire body. There's a procedure if the connection gets lost, so it both knows what to do and all of that, so it's all safe and secure. But a SoulKey session could be maybe 3.5 hours. That is a long time. So most likely the way I do it would be 2:15, something like that. But when you're a brand new therapist, 3 hours is nothing, because there's so much stuff you can do, but there's also a limit to the client. We all know, the basic stuff we usually throw out when we do 1 hour shows, like it feels like your body slept for 8 hours. It's not entirely true, because the contradiction is your brain feels like you just ran 2 marathons. That's a conflict, right? So all the stuff, you'll feel so relaxed, is basically a lie, because they feel totally confused afterwards. And that's just it. So imagine that, and then have spent a deep trance experience within your body, totally connected to every cell and molecule within you, but at the same time have such a high frequency in your brain where you just cope with everything, not just everything you can see right now, but on different levels. You're pretty much tired afterwards. So my requirements to sessions like this would be, I only do mornings. That'll be a 9 o'clock appointment. That means when it's about to be lunch, we're done. And my requirement to a client would be, don't go back home and do your taxes, go do your job or whatever. If you're an accountant, definitely don't go do that. Take off, go back home. If you've got kids, find another place, put your feet up, get a bottle of wine or whatever, and just sit there and reflect and see what happens. Because you just opened up the door. It's all going to settle within a week or two, not until then. Right now, we just push the button. So that's basically it.
So then, once you've opened up the door, does that mean that they will be able to continue on their own?
They do, because they're still downloading. The knowledge, we can integrate that within a split second.
So can they go back, as in meditation, can they go back?
Absolutely.
And
They can go straight back to the fireplace room and connect with whatever, and it will, 99 out of 100 cases, it's not the client doing that on purpose. It will be the client suddenly get drawn into it while sitting there on the couch nodding their head, and now there's more information ready for them. So it will never be a conscious decision. It will be something that happens on the exact right time, because it's beyond conscious human beings, right? We are just plain stupid, basically. But when we do connect, we're freaking awesome, right? We can do a lot of good stuff. So that's basically the setup. So there's 3 things in it, basically. There's all the past lives, there's the life between life, but there's also the soul communication. I have an idea, like if you go to life between life, we have different soul groups. We have the primary one, that is the one you're most connected with. That could be other souls with the same origin as you, same purpose, same job, whatever, all sorts of reasons for it. And usually it's a pretty close and small group, actually. It's not like, hey, we got 152 people. No, it's more likely if there's 12 or 14, that's a lot of people. And this fairy tale kind of thing that, oh, my wife is my soulmate, it's an absolute lie. It is. We might feel like that, but here's the reason why it's a lie. Most likely, in 999 cases out of 1,000, people in a primary soul group is not people we are connected with on a romantic level in this life. It's not our wife, it's not our husband, a girlfriend, a mistress, or whatever. It is somebody who probably will kick our butt in the middle of everything where we thought everything was safe and secure. But we were just standing still in life. So that stupid person, when you're facing it right now, that comes there and pulls away the carpet and destroys everything, and you hate them, but 6 months from now, you look back like, oh, that was the best time ever, the best thing that ever happened to me, because look at me now. Probably primary soul group. And it's very rare that all of them, or most of them, are incarnated at the same time. Then we have the secondary ones. That's your friends, that's your family, and there's always kind of like specific people that you're really good at cooperating with. So you will see the same people coming back and forth to different lives, kind of like taking the same roles because they do it well. And you play a part in their life too, in their development. So it's a big puzzle, but it's pretty happy family, all of it, right? Because we cannot hold a grudge towards a person that is already died, or already dead, that is not part of our life right now. On a conscious human level, yeah, we can. But on a soul level, hey, we're all friends. We made it up anyway. Which leads me to something that might be very provocative right now. Go back to my experience. Second World War. Here's a question that usually separates the sheep from the wolves. Hitler. Was he an advanced soul or a newbie?
For what?
As a soul, Hitler.
Was he what?
Was he a greenhorn or was he like a pro?
A pro,
Why?
Was
because he came here to share an experience with other souls.
Yeah.
to shake up.
I totally agree on that.
Experience for
Yeah.
everybody else.
So here's the thing. What I usually tell people before we do this is, all right, before you kill me, when I'm standing right here, I'm just Martin the human, thinking human thoughts, and I can be mad at you. But when I'm over here, I'm the soul. My name is not Martin anymore. It's sound, it's a frequency. And I know why, and I appreciate your help because I needed that experience. So you're absolutely right. And here's the reason why. What do you think it would take for someone to incarnate in a life, being totally stripped for any kind of emotion, go for, I want to rule the world, and not paying attention to regular stuff in life as love and stuff, and have no compassion whatsoever for other people that is not your race and stuff like that? It requires somebody who's pretty good at what they do. It's not easy. It doesn't justify the human actions, but it requires a really professional soul to be able to pull that off. And here's how I justify that idea. From all those 8,000 clients I had both the victims and the executors. And the interesting part is they all come up to the same idea. We wanted to become part of something amazing. And both of them had things against it beforehand. So it was not something that I kind of pushed them into believing. They had disbelief in the idea until they actually experienced it. Just thinking, it is right, this is what it's all about. And then they told me about their emotions. So I'm like, okay, it's provocative, I know, because any human being will go like, Hitler, he's an ass, right? Immediately. Otherwise something's wrong with you, right? On a human level. But on a soul level, it's way more sophisticated. Absolutely way more sophisticated. And if you look at soul life, I have like this two things happening. As a soul who reincarnates in a metaphysical life, you have two jobs. One, go do your work, do what's necessary, because you play a role in other people's lives. So you might be a pioneer, somebody who leads, somebody who provokes, somebody who creates drama and chaos. That's your job. And that is mostly the jobs as a human being where we kind of like maybe dislike our own life, because who would have chosen this fat guy from Denmark? Well, not right now, but I used to be, right? I'm like, I hate my life and my body until I got the experience. I kind of chose it myself. Kind of like, oh, damn it. Why? Why did I do that? I could have had the handsome guy with money in his pocket and millions and Lamborghinis, but that's freaking boring, right? From a soul perspective, human, I like a Lamborghini, right? I wouldn't be able to drive it though, because I will destroy it within seconds. But anyway, so you got the working life and you got the what I call the leisure life. That is where you kind of like just play a role and get the experience of different emotions without having to really work hard to get it. And usually when you get to choose one of the other, means you're pretty much up there where you get even closer to maybe it's time not to reincarnate anymore. And the reason for not doing that would be you gain so much knowledge, so the next level of learning would be guiding other souls and making sure they're doing all right. All right? So I want to switch back a little bit again to the soul groups, because I want to share a story. Jason Lina. I want to share a story with you guys. This reminds me of a story. Yeah, you know.
Do you go to Virginia?
I try not to. No, Jason is a really good friend. I love Jason. I've never been there actually. He just bought a new house. I know that. Yeah, I would love to go. I like a lot of pine forest and stuff, right?
He's in Northern Virginia,
Oh,
I'm in
okay.
Central Virginia.
Okay, so I'm not sure what the difference is besides distance, but country-wise. But anyway, the whole thing about if you were actually reincarnated all at the same time, I experienced that once in my past life. All the way back to the Crusades. I know my first physical incarnation on Earth, I actually know which one that was, and that was as an alchemist in Egypt 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. Interesting life, very stupid, but interesting life. Yeah, it was. It was stupid. It served a purpose, but looking at it with my eyes, kind of like, yeah, okay, weird. Why did I choose that? But anyway, it gives me foundation today, right? But the Crusades was kind of interesting because I knew later that all my buddies, right there was my entire primary soul group, with 12 of us. So here's what happens. We were part of the Crusades, trying to, preach Christianity all over Europe and stuff like that. And people who did not concur with that, agree with that, well, we burned down their villages and we killed the females and the children, so we got all the men to comply and do whatever we needed them to do, because that's how you did it back then. Vikings are no better; they just did it even more brutally, right? But trusting Christianity as the way we were taught it, we kind of like, why do we do that? Because that is not next of kin kind of love, is it? That is not respecting other people. So something's wrong with this setup. And we just kind of like, we randomly knew each other and decided one evening by the fire to actually leave and go back and help those people we tried to kill like weeks ago. So what we did, we just left. So now we were haunted, right, by the entire Crusades or whatever. And they actually made a good benefit from that, because they told everyone else that we were the ones burning down villages because we went rogue, okay? But what we did for a period of time, we actually got to rebuild some of those cities. We actually gave hope and faith to the people, like what religion should be all about. And we were on the run all the time. So what happened on the very west coast of France, close to the ocean, what happened was we were caught up in a courtyard of some kind in the middle of the night, being surrounded. So we kind of slept in this whole yard. There was walls around it, small cottages on the inside, small like shire kind of main building, that was it. And they didn't really know we were there, so we hid the horses and we just lay there in the hay and tried to, cover ourselves. And then got woken up by knowing that we're surrounded right now. People standing there with torches and stuff, knowing this is not good, right? So behind us, big wall and a fire. In front of us, angry soldiers. So to them, that would be pretty awesome if they can kill us one by one, showing people, we got them, let's get back to work, we killed the killers, right? So instead of giving them the hope of trying to conquer even more, we wanted to give more hope back to the people. Mm-hmm. Because the thing we're about to do, we never spoke about it in the group, we just did it. So here's what we did actually. We were standing there, we got all our gear, we still got our swords and our armor and stuff and our helmets. So what we did was actually took off our helmets, placed it in front of us, took our swords, did like that, and pulled the handle away from us, but towards our enemy, and just stood up and went backwards into the fire. We would rather go that way than give them the pleasure of showing others what to do with people who actually have a belief in something. And that might be sometimes when I just sit around and think about that, it's going to be so emotional, because the emotion behind it is larger than my life right now. So what happened was recently, a couple of years ago, going to the Life Between Life, into the soul group room. Here's 11 knights. That was the first time I was there seeing them. And everybody was quiet. Like, if you enter like a group of people and everybody suddenly just shuts up and look at you, you're kind of like, that's awkward. That was the feeling. And I went like, oh, we all connected. That's it. looking at everyone, right? Thinking, the emotional level right now just went from DEFCON 1 to a 3. Like, wow. So what happened was, they actually kneeled, all of them, and took off the, armor and helmets, and I thought, this is gonna go bad in a moment. And then they started laughing, all of them. I'm like, oh wow, this is love. So it just switched from human being afraid to complete and utterly love on a scale I never experienced before. And here's an interesting thing that follows that right after. 2013, I'm invited to be part of Shelley's IHF conference in San Pedro. It's all about you conference, and she's awesome. I know no one who can laugh at anything like she can do it. She's freaking awesome. And I was in a panel about life after death, I think it was called. And on my left was a lady, some of you might know her, she's called Cindy Sawyer. I think she lived in Hawaii at that time. And I was the new kid on the block because I'd never been to that conference before. Nobody knew me, just kind of like half of this conference because this is my first time at Heartland. And what happened was she just looked at me and she started speaking German to me. I'm like, I'm Danish, all right. And it's kind of like you don't call any other Europeans for Germans because that is nasty, right? The same thing as calling the Swedes the conquerors of the Danish people. No, we were the ones, right? So there's this feud going on all the time. And she went like, okay, felt a little bit awkward, and then she picked it up again, and she answered something in German to me, like waiting for an answer. I'm like, what don't you get, lady? I could answer you in German, but it's kind of like awkward right now because what's happening? So I felt like this one of those moments where I go like, yeah, okay, like that, because I felt uncomfortable, right? So. But anyway, I told everyone about my German story, as I did in the very beginning of this one. And she started crying, and I was like, oh, she's a nutcase, okay, right? So, but again afterwards, there was something that kept my attention being drawn to her. So I said afterwards, can we have a brief chat somewhere, just you and I? And she went, yeah, I would really love that. And so we went to the other room, and she said, before I said anything, she said, have you said any of the names from your family or any of other details than from what you mentioned in the room? Have you said anything to anyone at any time at all? I'm like, nope, that is my story. All the personal stuff, I keep that to myself. But I know all of it. She went, uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Were your sister's name? And then she mentioned her name. I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Were your dad's name? And then she started mentioning all of those details. Mm-hmm. The tricky part is she had a client a couple of weeks ago, a math professor from the University of Hawaii, who had the first time ever a spiritual hypnotic experience within a past life regression. He was my freaking sister.
Oh.
So it all added up to her, and she played a part in it too. And at that time in my life, I needed another boost of confirmation to really trust that everything I was doing was worth all of it. And that was the moment I was looking for, because that was confirmation. That was my German experience times 10.
Oh, yeah.
Because I had no courage, no information to fight against that. She just walked straight up to me, gave me information. I knew I was the only one who had it. That was special. And it tells me that it's not about the method. Methods are good because we can get there faster, more efficient, and we can take care of our clients, but it's all connected anyway. So my experience is not a genuine one that in the terms of it's just mine. Who knows? Some of you might be connected to my world of that. Why wouldn't we? If you're all at the same level anyway, probably we're more connected than we think. Probably, right? So SoulKey is definitely one of my babies because it's still uncharted territory. There's so much we can do. Just recently, I through my counselor in SoulKey on that level, we got the information of a master level that has an observatory and a different path to the tree of life and some other themes that is completely out of a fantasy story, but we had a lot of clients through that, and that is freaking amazing. So I only did 2 trainings of that, and recently, like 1.5 years ago, started teaching people to teach other people to do this. So we're taking off now. This is interesting because it's already a revolution in some parts of this industry, but I keep being low-key about it because people will find it when they need it. I don't have to market it. I don't have to push all of this down people's throats like this is the only way to do it. But I do claim it's the fastest and most direct source of this whole experience, because I've seen no one being able to do anything like this, the thing we can do with our clients. And saying that, I've had people from Bruce Lipton to Brian Weiss, Sutphins, Newtons, all of them coming to my trainings wanting to disprove what I do is faster and easier, leaving saying, this is the only method we're going to do from now on. And I know I'm doing good because you know what the Newton Institute changed recently, or a couple of years ago? They're not doing the most recent past life anymore, but they're actually using my technique to get there. So I'm pretty happy with that.
So what is your technique?
My technique is actually just do the induction and get them straight to the fireplace room and see what happens. Instead of doing all the charade stuff like bad acting.
And the fireplace is the soul.
It's kind of like the safe place for your soul. When you're there, it's your place. It's decorated all the ways you want it to be, and it's a pretty special place. It's kind of like, you know, the whole.
It's your home base.
Yeah, it's your home base. It's kind of like the whole misconception about what happens if the hypnotist dies. Will I ever wake up? Well, if you ever wake up, that's not the problem. The question is, how long do you want to stay, right? Because most people who get to that place, they say, I feel home.
Yeah.
And it's something I cannot explain in words, actually, because that's a physiological, emotional experience. When people get that, it's kind of like, I know now. And when we push the conscious mind through that, and we make those arrangements by being there and feeling safe and secure, that means now the client has full access at all times they need it. They just need that one visit with somebody who knows what to do, and it's an open door now. So here's another thing, not to cut you off or anything. If you're already an intuitive, and you think you got a pretty good thing going on, just wait until you get to the fireplace room, get one trip into the healing portal, and get out again. Whatever you think was connected before that is nothing. Nothing. I promise you. It's nothing. Because now you get direct information, not all the BS stuff, not all the low frequencies, but straight to the point, and that is sometimes it's pretty scary how much you can do. And in a way where, you know, you will see some psychics try to overload the people, the clients, and give more information than they ask for. It's impossible in SoulKey. You will get the exact information, even the questions they didn't ask about, because my very first experience of being in the fireplace room, having somebody to sit in the chairs, what actually happened was that person who visited exchanged body with me for a short while. So I was channeling. I never believed in that stuff, but I have like a 30-minute channeling from the UK on a Michael Newton training, where people actually entered the room that was not part of the session, and whoever channeled through me is on the tape, and it's not my voice. I know it's not my words, and I'm not sure where I was. But before they ask a question, he goes, lady in red, you got 3 questions. And she goes, well, I have 2. Well, you thought about the 3rd one on the way in, walking in the door. She went, that's right. Well, here's the answers. And he just goes through all the answers, and there's silent in the room. So when they woke me up afterwards...
But it was you.
Yeah, well, being connected to something.
Right.
It was, but it wasn't.
Right.
So when they woke me up afterwards, I'm like, oh, that was a kind of interesting experience, not knowing what had happened, and they just looked at me like, all right. Did I fart?
Yeah.
What happened? What, did I snore? What happened? Do you know what you just did? No, absolutely not.
You weren't there,
no,
you were gone.
I was gone. I don't know what I was doing, but I was somewhere else. But listening to that afterwards gave me the chills, because that is something that I still don't quite understand or believe, but I trust it.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah.
But I have a hard time because there's still this boy within me with resistance, And that might be the reason why I think I'm pretty good at what I do, because I'm doing all the research and then some every time I do something. I will not be teaching anything unless I really proved my point and I can answer all the questions that might pop up, because I need to do that. If I'm a trainer and inspiration, I would never go, well, it's in my book, so you might read that.
Right.
So, because if I was that student, I would say, why is it in your book then? Why did you write it down? What's the experience? Well, I had this idea. That's not what I'm asking for, because I'm not reading philosophy. I want to read proof. So why did you have that idea? Well, I had a chat with my client, so that's not good enough. That's not real then. It's just an idea. So what is real?
Right.
So I'm always going for what's real in this reality. Or that one, or that one. Yeah,
So you're
you and you.
You're teasing us, and there's not a way for us to do it. That's
Exactly.
No, you need to know the secret password.
Well, I'm just saying,
That
like,
one.
you're not from the United States, so like, obviously everybody here is very fascinated with wanting to do something, I'm thinking.
Well, here's
So
the
like,
answer.
how do we get?
I'm not
that?
What are you
from-
doing tonight?
I'm not from here, but I'm actually in the US every single month. I got a business in Vegas. I travel back and forth all the time. I do all my trainings in Vegas. So 80% of everything that I do is within the US. And I'm moving here next year anyway. All the paperwork is done. So I'm one of the few who actually got the permit to be here and do something, right?
Legally.
Yeah, legally. Right. So I'm all over. So just go to my website, and if there's enough people, I'll set up a training. I don't advertise that good, saying, well, how many are you right now? Let's do a training. Let's figure out a date next month, because I do have a tight schedule. But if there's enough people, I will find room for it, because it's a 3-day training and there's pre-course and content you have to go through before that. But I'll promise you guys, the first thing I'm going to say to you guys on first 5 minutes is, congratulations, you're all certified. And you might go, but we're really not. Well, now it's my responsibility. That means you can just lean back and go through the process and trust me teaching you, because now it's my responsibility. It's not about what you do the last 2 hours. It's about everything you do from now on until the moment I do this. Here you go, congratulations. It can never be your responsibility, because as a teacher, it's my job. Make sense? Right? Question?
Yes. First of all, if you're going through a lot of people who are talking about their past life experiences, then they must be asking them how they set these things up or how these things came about. Did they personally set it up, or was there a grander scheme setting it up? And second of all, there are physicists like Tom Campbell who thinks this is a virtual reality, and we're sort of playing a game here.
Yeah.
Then there's on the other hand, there's all the problems happening with the nature of evil, which is intentional harm, how that fits in, and I can understand you can choose. I used to be on stage, so I understand that the witch and bitch are always the more fun parts to play. I got that. But the other issue is what's happening with the earth and what we're doing there. So
All right.
you have to address any of
I
this.
think I might be able to answer it, but in a philosophical way.
Yeah.
All right. So here's my take on that, because there's always, are we all connected? Is it a virtual reality thing and all of that? Well, I kind of like just leave that for any individual to take the stand on that, because it's still about your presence and your reality right now and what to get out of that. So I'm not looking at the entire picture, because I don't think anyone will ever find the truth in that. But if we're all here, we might serve a purpose, so let's look for the purpose instead. So that is my take on that. But at the same time, when that is said, I don't believe, there's always been evil and good. At least as long as religion has existed. Right? And that's basically it, because that is it.
That's mainly wars.
Yeah, well, and the more religious you are in a country or in civilization, the more proof of evil and good you will find. So there's actually a curve that follows exactly that. So here's my take on that. On a soul level and unconscious level, you cannot be evil, because everything serves a higher positive intention, no matter what. And that ego is freaking awesome. because that's you doing the best on behalf of you so you can become better and maybe have energy and time to inspire others. The contrast is the conscious mind, their ego, or its ego, is me, me, me. I don't give a shit about you. I might kick you in the gut so I can get to that point before you can because I need that. And that is evil. It can become evil, and it can become whatever, negative, pessimistic, or survival, or whatever, but that is how our brain is wired, because conscious minds is all about survival. We will do whatever it takes to survive. Take any person in this room at some certain point, if they're pushed enough, and there's another human being in the room and one gun, and you're being told something very specific, you will fight over that gun and you will pull the trigger on that other person at any time whatsoever under the right circumstances, because it's all about survival. So and to add to that, do you think this place, when we talk about all the soul stuff, right, and become really, within the philosophy right now, do you think this dimension is the easy one, or is it the tough school?
It's a tough one.
It's absolutely the tough
It's
one.
the
And here's
hardest.
another thing. Well, one of them,
Yeah.
but definitely one of the last stations you go to, because everybody who's here is not noobs when it comes to soul life. They might be not so confident. We do see people leave because they're jumping out of windows because they can't cope with all the emotion and stuff because they're not ready in that kind of dimension or whatever. But it's not beginners, but they're new to this. So who would choose a life where you're at birth get stripped of all your knowledge, all your knowings, and being kicked into the world, and now allow for the next 20 years everybody else to tell you how to behave and become, and what to become, and what to do, and what to think, and what to mean, and then finally, somewhere between 20 and 30, you might figure out, well, I am my own existence. So who am I really? Identity crisis, new ideas, I want to become this or that, and then spend the next 20 years trying to accomplish that, and then suddenly figure out life is what you make of it. Who would ever choose that, right? We would, because that's what we're looking for. It's not about how much money we got in our accounts, how much stuff our kids will inherit when we're dead and gone. It's all about what do you get out of life that will go to the account of your soul. The more emotions, the bigger jumps you might make, the more experience you get. And even if you had the most lousy life whatsoever, I had clients who really had bad past lives and current lives, but they started loving it because now they knew it was about something different. And that reminds me of a story. An old neighbor, I talked about this at one of those, you had a street party, everybody's barbecuing, and people go, I'm the new one in the street, so what do you do? And I hate that. Usually I just say I'm an undertaker. People just leave me, and I'm good with that because I'm antisocial. So what happens, it doesn't make sense, but I am quite a bit, I only hang out really with really close friends because I have a trust issue. So if I hang out with you, it means I trust you, right? But anyway, he was so offended because he was in a wheelchair. He was completely numb from chest down from an accident on a trampoline. And he's like, nobody chooses their life. I'm like, well, I accept that opinion because that's what you know right now. But I've seen stuff. I'm not sure where I am in my stand right now, but I've seen so much happening and people telling me otherwise that I keep that door open because I didn't want to provoke him, right? But it's not my job. And he's like, well, how dare you? Look at me. And he was all pissed off at the entire world, right? I'm like, well, whenever you feel like it, let's have a chat. I even give you a session so you can have the experience. Who knows, can it become any worse? And he's just like, fuck you, right? So almost 12 months passed, and he calls me out like, does the offer still stand with that session? I'm like, oh yeah, so I still hate you. I'm like, oh, that's okay. We don't have to barbecue anymore. It's okay. I just want to give you the experience because that's on me. Because anything that might happen can only be better than what it is right now. So that is my gift to you. So what he discovered, he went to the life choosing room in the Life Between Life, And he had two other options, but he chose the cripple. And he knew why he chose the cripple. Why he chose that childhood, which was rubbish. Why he actually had the injury at the age of 19. Why his wife hates him. Why he got the kids he never wanted and all of that. Why everything was a struggle. He knew in that very moment why, and I said nothing. So that made him change his entire take on life. So he started loving what he did. He divorced his wife, and she liked that idea, and fell in love with life. He had helpers all. He had two helpers all the time. That's how disabled he was. In spite of that, he got a special skiing sled made because several families, we went skiing in Austria and Sweden and Norway. He got a sled built so he could come with us and enjoy the moment. But he never said thank you. He doesn't have to. Because I saw that in his eyes. Because at one time we stood at one of the top of those hills facing all the beautiful snow, and he looked at me and said, I love this. He said, I know. That's it. That was the thank you. So yes, we choose our lives. So that is my take on it. That nothing is coincidence. We might want it to be, because that will explain a lot of weird stuff, wouldn't it? But you're the master of you, and to finish off the entire session, who controls you? You do. Never doubt that. We might go to the council in Life Between Life, and we might stand in front of the council. It might seem like, okay, we're gonna go to the exams right now, because there they are up there and looking down at me, and they're saying, you need to change, or whatever. I'm just painting the picture right now. But who's telling them what to say to you? You are. You chose this moment. And here's a privilege as a human being. You might see the bus right in front of you. The door might be open. Everybody's like, come along, come on, come on. We've got a seat for you. And that very last moment you go, nah, I need other stuff to do right now. And you know that was a wrong choice, but you took it because in that moment, for some reason, it was the right choice. So you need to appreciate that, because eventually there will be another bus. That is the purpose of free will. I don't believe it's entirely free, but it's just postponing stuff. Because
There's a price for the
yeah,
free will.
there's always a price. But here was, if you take all the easy choices throughout life, you might get to a knowledge and it seems easy, but it's not going to be very deep, is it? So the more difficult choices you make, and the more you postpone the good stuff, and the deeper you get into the soil of life that hurts you, in the very end, when you leave and cut the silver cord, you will go, that's pretty nice. Because who would ever choose a life, being born and get killed at the age of 3? Who would choose that? A skilled soul. Because it's not about them. Well, the emotion is, but it's just 3 years in a soul life. That's nothing. But what a gift to give to the parents when they finally, in their
That's what I
life,
was just
thinking,
gonna say.
oh, it's all about loss, regaining, and knowing we're still connected, so love is intact, maybe even more powerful. Wow. They might not know it until that moment where they actually leave life. But if they get the knowledge throughout life, wow.
So it's a gift they give their family.
That is my perspective. And it's not just because I want to paint a nice picture saying, well, it's all good, believe in it, love, and
That's what
smoke a joint and just be happy, right? Or be so relaxed, you shit yourself and that's it, and don't give a shit about it. No, it's all about basically that you have to acknowledge that you control the elements. And it's not about when you get the knowledge, it's what kind of knowledge do you get, because you control the elements. So nothing is so difficult, it's not good for something.
And when you see it that way, there are no victims.
Plus, remember,
You are accountable.
who's making the
you're
decisions
responsible.
and the judgments? The human or the soul?
The human.
Yeah, there you go. So that is my take on that. Nothing I said to people, but it's my clients telling that to me.
So each soul making the decisions for themselves adds up to a whole collective decisions.
Probably.
And what I have trouble with considering right now is the state that the world is in and facing perhaps annihilation of the human race. Certainly we've annihilated a whole lot of species in a very short period of time. So any thoughts on that?
Why do you think there was going back to the Second World War, why do you think suddenly there was a huge concentration of Jewish people in that area for some weird reason? Because years before that, there weren't that many Jewish
I
people.
was one
around.
of those little Jewish kids,
There you
3 years
go.
old in Downtown.
Right. So because we chose it. So we look for those events.
Wait a minute, I got up into spirit and they said, what are you doing back so soon? I said, well, how did I know that artist would become a politician?
Yeah. Hey,
I was supposed to be something else.
well, but you still chose it. So the question is, why did you have that shortcut to get another experience? That's what I would be looking for if
I
you were
wanted
my
to be a
client.
singer in Germany, I ended up.
Well, that is a human choice.
Huh.
That is a human choice. So again, I'm dividing up the stuff. Human, soul. I know why we have the answers as a human, because I'm offended easily too. I'm judgmental. I hate people who treat other people like shit. But that is me being human. I can stand down right now at the gas station, somebody cutting into the queue in front of me, and go like, you dick. Right?
Right?
But the soul could go like, I got all the time you need, right? But I'm not there yet, being there down there, because I just fueled my car, so I'm very human right there at that moment. But I know it afterwards. So instead of looking at like, oh, it should have been different, I kind of taught myself into going into the emotion of it and thinking, that's an interesting emotion. What happened? What is it really? What is the higher potential or intention behind that emotion? How can I utilize that in another situation? And when I taught myself, when I hear kind of like a pling in the back of my mind, it's because it's settled and I'm back in business. So, and sometimes I do it very easily. Other times it's a struggle and it takes me weeks. Because as a human, I'm low on energy sometimes. And sometimes I'm high as a kite, right? But either way, I'm always passionate about what I do, and that is what's driving me through life and doing what I'm doing. So remember what cap you have on, because a human want to be a singer, but what lies beyond that? That's the interesting part, because there's probably 1,000 ways to get that emotion that's behind the German singer. What's underneath that? There's probably 1,000 ways of getting that same emotion in a different direction or in a different path or whatever.
I'm still using my
Yeah.
voice to heal.
So that was one choice at the time, but there might be other choices too. But you chose that for that very moment. So I would go into depth about why did I choose that and not this? That's the interesting part. Your soul knows, you don't, but you will. So that's the interesting. So I consider myself like a journalist within this craft, because on the behalf of my clients, it's my job to make sure they will get as much knowledge as possible. So yes, I will ask all the weird questions for them on their behalf, because they might not have considered it, because eventually throughout the session there might be a human question popping up. Okay, let's allow that. But I would rather have all the soul questions, and as we speak up and say it out loud, it's on the recording and they can listen to it, so they got the answers. That's it. Make sense?
Yeah. Very good.
From my perspective. So, because
I remember separating from source, and I was in multicolored light with all these other multicolored lights.
Sounds about right.
Going on great adventure.
yeah,
My mind's still trying to figure out that.
so that's probably the truth. Because I've seen that picture many times before, so
Really?
yeah. That is your soul.
Yeah, and I've met,
Yeah.
I knew some of the people that came were a ball of light too.
Well, let me tell you like this, you only scratch the surface. So when you trust that even more, you will see an entire world unfolding in front of you, and you'll know then. But it's all good. We
It's
know
life-changing.
it's life changing.
Okay, so you go into this room for the soul, why not go into the future, what's gonna happen?
Because that will be a perception on a conscious level to stimulate that. Instead of actually aiming for the real emotion behind it, and then see what you can possibly do with it. So do it in the right fashion way, and it will be even better.
So if, because again, a lot of scientists think all time is simultaneous anyway. So if.
If it is, we don't know.
And going to the soul room, you should be able to access the future.
Yeah, and you will. There's another tool in SoulKey where you can do that as much as you like, but it's not for everyone.
Okay.
because the amount of information you'll get might overload your brain, so you're not going to be the same afterwards. Some people handle it, but you'll only get access to the stuff you can actually handle. But I've been there with several people. Yeah. Did you enjoy yourself?
Yes.
All right.